Hello, hi everyone. Excited to be here today with the Mark Romagnoli. Is that right?
That's right. You got it.
Romagnoli from the first time, by the way. uh, yeah, so from the Mark Romagnoli, who is CEO of the 33rd team, and excited to speak about your journey and about your company, Mark. So introduce yourself a little.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm happy to be here and appreciate you having me on. So, like you said, my company currently is the 33rd team. I joined 2 years ago as Chief Operating Officer. Prior to that, had spent a decade at Boston Consulting Group as a organizational transformation expert. And then my stop prior was at a small production boutique house called Wave Sports Entertainment. We scaled that pretty successfully, and then I was looking for a new challenge, so found Mike Tannenbaum, the current CEO, and the rest of the team at 33rd. It's been an awesome journey. We were discussing the 33rd team's definitely transformed over the 2 years since I've been here.
Mhm.
Most excitingly, we've recently closed a financing round that's going to allow us to really strategically pivot the business and start pushing into data and technology, which I think is why we're here today.
Yes, yes. So tell us about your current business model, which was previous one, and where. Yeah, let's start from this.
Sure. So the original company, was really contemplated to be a group of NFL experts that were creating, call it, higher content around the NFL, having former coaches, GMs, executives come in and talk about the game in a different way. It was a really good concept. Where the company struggled, candidly, was just the economic model. So how to make that viable when there's a lot of free content on the internet. If we look back retroactively, that's probably a better subscription business than a front-facing consumer platform. Anyways, what we really had was a great bones of people who knew football. So as we were moving forward, we realized one of our production tools had this incredible feed of data that was coming off the field. So all players wear XY RFID chips in their shoulder pads, and they blink every tenth of a second, providing an XY coordinate. So if you
Hmm.
stop and you think about the power of that data, that gives you a running log of information of where everyone is on a football field from the start to finish of a game. We took that and we started to realize that we could not very easily, but very quickly start to build models and algorithms and start to capture that information in ways and translate it to football information. So no longer at raw XY, when is a huddle formed, when is a ball snapped, when is a player going in motion, what route did they run, and you can start to think we're basically going to start to automate or digitize football scouting.
Interesting, right? So you mentioned that you had these data feeds previously, and now, and you've been using them for media purposes. For what and how it was used up to this point?
Sure. So early on, we were using it so we could get quickly start to understand and get the information coming out of a game to give our experts information so they could quickly turn around media, right? In a saturated market, we thought speed to market, speed to analysis would be a way that we could start to win and stand out. It did work. It worked a little bit, but then we saw a much larger opportunity to actually take that information and start actually passing it back to teams themselves.
Okay, yeah. So tell us a little bit, how have you got this idea of pivoting a little bit, and why, taking this data and giving back to the teams? Like, where do you see a opportunity over there, and what is the opportunity?
Yeah, I think to understand how we saw this opportunity and why, you really need to think about the market and what is currently occurring today. There's a few large incumbents that effectively own 100% penetration of the market. A majority of them do this all by hand. So you're talking 1,000, 2,000 people that after the games end on Sunday, tape is sent out, and around the world, these guys start to manually code up to 300 to 500 data fields per play. So if you just think about that data set, you think about that operation. One, it's incredible that they figured out how to do that in the first place, but you can start to understand that there's certain flaws in the delivery. It's not as fast as it could be. People need to sleep. It's potentially error prone because it's very, very hard to sit and watch 150 plays in a football game, code
Mm-hmm.
300 fields, and ensure they're all accurate,
Mm-hmm.
consistently accurate, right? You may miss one thing on one play and another thing on another play, which makes it a data set that, while robust, may be hard to just empirically trust everywhere.
So you basically see that the market is manual right now, and you wanted to automate this, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, and how do you came up with the technology right now? You mentioned models, right? Hey,
Yeah.
having this data is a data feed as one thing, but creating something useful out of the data is different.
Yeah, so we were very lucky to meet a very strong engineering team, folks who had some experience and had tried to do, call it smaller bites at the apple by themselves. And so, we presented this idea. We met these individuals and we started to do a 3-month test effectively to say, hey, like, are you accurate enough? Because it's one thing, like you're saying, to put data in a model and get information out. And
Mm-hmm.
it's another thing for that to be incredibly accurate to the point of which we can turn around and actually show an NFL customer and they're going to say, yes, this is better than what we have today, or this is accurate enough, maybe even beyond what they're doing internally.
Mm-hmm.
We ran that 3-month test and we were lucky enough to hire a company called MatchSense, who has a great product leader, great chief technology officer, and they really helped us hit the ground running and build this out.
Okay, so you collaborated with Much Sense to create this product. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I think the founder of Much Sense is actually is the ex-founder of PFF.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a man named Neil Hornsby.
Yeah.
And Neil's a great guy. I think he has a lot of respect for his prior business. He obviously built an incredible business from scratch. And he was very instrumental in at least helping us understand what it takes to enter this market and how to be successful and the rigor and the approach that's required. And the best thing about Neil is that Neil is very good at hiring people who are also incredible.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of amazing people on that team, like Chris Moore, the CTO, Jason Greenfield, Will Howard, our data scientists. Like, some of these guys are just absolutely amazing. They're one of ones, and so we've been very lucky to have them. And again, they that cohesiveness and just that team understanding the market, understanding what it takes to win, really helped us accelerate what we were doing.
Okay, yeah. Tell us a little bit more about the product, the exact things that you will be delivering to the teams, and what makes you stand out from, like you said, the speed, but also what makes you stand out from the other data providers.
Yeah, of course, of course. So again, just to set the context around the purpose of this tool. So this tool is really a coaching and front office solution.
Mm-hmm.
So what this tool intends to do is, for any given play in the NFL, it comes in and it evaluates from start to finish every individual player's performance on that play, and then aggregates it up to also starting to look at things at the team level. So let me give you an example. Mark comes out, he's lined up as the outside linebacker. Okay, that's great. That's my position. Then the next piece of data we'd analyze is, what did Mark do on that play?
Mm-hmm.
Did I drop into coverage? And then if you start to say that, now Mark and Cyril, what they both did. We aggregate that up to start to say, here's what the defense actually executed on that play. They played cover 2, for example.
Mm-hmm.
See how these different pieces of information we're collecting and adding together start to really provide a holistic picture of what's happening on the field.
Okay.
Now, if you take that data and you start to interpret it and roll it up, you can start to understand things like insights and tendencies around how teams react and how certain players perform. And that works both from an internal scouting, how's my team doing, how did X work when I called it, to what's my opponent doing and how do I get ready for next week. So there's 2 uses for teams.
Okay, yeah, so the opposition analysis and basically your team performance analysis. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. And in terms of, do you see your data set becoming bigger over time and basically being that you will be able to use this data set, let's say, for squad management or other ways? I know it's kind of long vision question, but still interested.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we think this data set is going to become incredibly valuable over time. And again, one of the advantages we have is if you start developing on a very agile and model basis, there's really no limit to how much data you can add into the stack. I do think we'll eventually hit a wall on limitations of what just raw XY data can do. So for example, a couple things we don't have: a Z coordinate. We don't know where someone is vertically on the field. That may not exist over time, so that would help us start to unlock new data fields we can do. I also think there will be applications for things like computer vision to expand it. So if you think about catch point, different techniques of players, where their hands are, that's all things that we can't do via XY, but largely using tape and computer vision is probably possible. So that's the way we expand. I think to your question, yes, we do start to see things like roster management, entering salary cap information, because if you have player performance, that's just another data set that you need to bring in to start to make this tool serve many purposes. And if you think about a market like NCAA, there's a new opportunity there given all the rule changes. So perhaps that's a place for us to push first.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. So yeah, give us a priority on what you guys will focus on first, second, and let's say how you see 33rd team in let's say 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years ideally. With you being in, somewhere in Hawaii with drinks.
Yeah, that'd be the nice angle, right? So look, I think our business strategy has always been to go for the NFL consumer or the NFL customer first, and the
Hmm.
rationale there is that these guys have the most robust data ecosystem today. They're already paying for and using analytics tools. They know that this can help them, and the infrastructure exists in all the stadiums to collect this information, which is a very important piece. Our thought is that getting NFL teams to be customers is effectively a gold stamp on your product, right? They're going to push it, and if they're using it and it's good enough for them, cascading that down to lower levels of football should not be that difficult, because what works for the NFL will certainly work for the NCAA, and the next step for all those folks in NCAA, both coaches and players, is the NFL. Right, and so we're kind of bringing them the technology of where they hopefully aspire to be. You know, if I think about what we need to execute in 6 months, it's winning in the NFL. We need to have some traction. We need to have some customers. We need to also listen to our customers and understand what we're doing well and how we can get better. And that probably covers the next 6 months to a year, because really, I believe in doing one thing really, really, really well before you do the next, and understanding and building our product for our main customer set is important. If I look out 5 years, we'd be remiss if we weren't entering into the NCAA rapidly. And I think that's probably a 2 to 3 year horizon. NCAA is obviously going through a lot of rule changes. NCAA is becoming more professional. As our CEO likes to say, it's professional football that's played on Saturdays.
Hmm.
What this requires and what this warrants is a whole set of investment from private investors. You're now going to start paying kids millions of dollars, so you need to understand their performance, what they can do potentially in helping your team. Transfer portals, a version of free agency. And so having the right information and having the right tools to make those decisions is critical, and it allows us to expand our market and improve our product both for NCAA teams on their field, and then NFL teams, of course, want the data on the players coming into the league. So we kind of continue to win on both fronts.
Hmm.
5 years out, we're probably talking, if I have it my way, maybe we start to go down to high school, because I think there's an incredible opportunity to do end-to-end football, which would be tracking someone from 16 to the league and starting to build a database that is effectively thought to be impossible today. I think more realistically, on the business side, we'll be focused on finding monetization opportunities for our data. So are there fantasy applications or fantasy platforms that we can send our data and it's better what they're using today? Can we let consumers come and build tools? In the advent of no code and AI, people are really creative and can build on top of it. Do we create an open ecosystem and allow folks to come in and pay us a small license fee and build their next application? So, I can't imagine to know all the answers. There's plenty of smart people out there, but we'll really be focused on remonetizing that core asset we've built, because there's limited cost and there's a lot of upside there.
Okay, so in terms of the business development, right, and NFL, then NCAA, and high school, hopefully, but that's from your hold. But also, you will be looking to monetize the data that you're currently having from NCAA. Is that
That's
correct?
right. That's right. NCAA and NFL.
Okay, and in terms of the product development perspective, what next steps do you see adding some kind of AI layer to this, or let's talk about buzzword, right? AI.
Yeah, it's cool. So we've kicked around AI, and I think our engineers would yell and they would say, "Well, machine learning is like the original AI, right?" And it's like, yeah, that is, we're absolutely using, call it like core AI tools. But if we think more of like the fun or modern AI tools, so like Gen AI tools or that layer that's getting created today, I think there's probably 3 use cases that could hit our product pretty quickly. One, of course, if we have a big data set that spans multiple years, just putting a simple insights and analytics layer on top of it, powered by AI, letting it aggregate, letting it help us understand trends and insights that are just hard for folks to do. I think that's probably the simplest, most straightforward deployment. I would be shocked if we don't have some version of that out by next year, as we start to think about adding layers that create value for our teams on top of the data. Right now, we're mostly focused on the data, because bad data into AI is bad data out of AI.
Yeah.
But that would be the logical next step. One really cool one, and this is a use case we've heard from a ton of coaches, is this whole idea of a digital assistant. So you can think that, NFL coaches are creatures of habit, right? Game ends Sunday. They have 4 to 5 days to prep, get everything ready, analyze all their film from both last week and the next week, and get their team going. That's a very limited time frame. What could
Yeah.
potentially accelerate their week is an assistant that has everything cut up the way that they would like to see it Monday morning when they return to office. So they don't have to go watch the film. They have an assistant that understands how they typically dissect it, what stands out to them, what they'd like to analyze, and it gives them almost like a day head start because someone's acting on their behalf, almost like coaching agency.
So you see AI will be do that.
I think AI could do that.
Okay, okay, yeah. And then the third scene, you've mentioned three scenes.
Yeah, and so I think, sorry, forgot what my third one was here. AI and computer vision. I actually think the AI layer of computer vision and the ability to assess more frames faster and draw patterns out of what's getting ingested via computer vision is a way that that's going to really expedite the potency of that technology. For folks that don't know, computer vision is effectively teaching a computer how to watch football. And the biggest challenge with computer vision today is it's very good at saying this blob moves here, it can track. It's very, very bad at saying what number player that person is. So what we call player participation. And so the ability for an AI engine to ingest multiple angles, be able to intelligently pattern match across that, really starts to solve that because you can think not all players are in the frame at any given time, and that presents a large problem for most computer vision providers.
Yeah, completely agree with you on that. That's where we also serve. But let's say insights, cutting the videos for coaches, preparing the videos, and computer vision. This is the three things you see your product will have in future. The features you probably will have.
That's right. I think some piece of each of those AI applications likely exists. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess I got everything in terms of NFL, right? In NFL, like you said, they have a lot of technology around them and etc. Let's say if you're going down to NCAA level, the technology, they have less technology over there. And how do you see this problem being solved? Are you also looking to be a hardware, providing an hardware to them or not? And what are the plans over there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Absolutely not on the hardware front. Yeah, it's not our wheelhouse. That is a lot of specialized manufacturing and just a business that in a tight would be largely time consuming and expensive to stand up. It is interesting to try to own that pipeline from end to end, from like hardware to data. That's a really interesting thought and probably a pretty good moat. But for us, not likely in the near term. The interesting piece with NCAA is that there are a number of providers entering the space that are thinking about doing chipping in different ways. There's a very cool startup called Sportable. They are trying to keep the cost down because they make effectively the deployment of RFID portable. So you don't have to spend and install it into a stadium and rip it back out. What they allow you to do is basically bring a briefcase of trackers, set it up temporarily, and so it drives the cost down. And as with any hardware technology, the tech keeps getting better and the costs typically go down because it's a little easier to execute. So that's one, kind of. There's also another company on the market called Catapult who does a lot of XY tracking. They do satellite as opposed to RFID. Many teams use them in practice. So where we sit, we think of ourselves as relatively provider agnostic. We'll let the providers innovate so long as we can get a version of what the XY data feeds that we need. Now, it may not look exactly the same, but if it's within the same proximity, we should be able to work with it. But then really in college, I think there's likely going to be almost like a separation where, again, there's like a 60, 70 set of teams that basically play like pros. They have all the right infrastructure. And then I think computer vision is probably going to come along and fill the rest of those gaps there. I just don't know that smaller schools are going to be willing to pay even $10,000 to put tracking into their stadium. It's just not in their budget.
All right, I got you. And do you see any challenges like with companies you mentioned, Catapult and other companies that will be trying, if they have a hardware, that they will be trying to do what you guys are doing? And do you see them probably becoming better?
No, I think it's a really symbiotic ecosystem. I think where a lot of the hardware manufacturers do really really well and play is on the performance side. So tracking things like player, how much distance a player has traveled, workload, different things like that. That's really their bread and butter and what they excel at today. I think where we actually add value to these guys is extended use cases. So what else can you use this information for? And why go reinvent the wheel if someone else is helping you basically remonetize your underlying hardware? We kind of coexist in this space, and we're basically innovating for them. So I see it as more of a partnership model, more of a companionship, and we allow them to continue to execute, and we can go build and create new value for them.
Okay, yeah, I got you. So NCAA, I understood about this level, and let's say high school. That's possible in high school in 5 years. Any ideas?
High school is hard for several reasons, right? You can think of one is you move down football, it becomes less centralized. So there's less and less governing bodies. Again, the NFL is beautiful because all 32 teams have the same standards. They all follow the same game day operations from film to everything. It makes it very easy to operate. NCAA is more of a state model where the conferences make the rules. NCAA has some rules, but the conferences dictate a ton. High school is like the local community model, and the fact that the South Florida teams are going to do one thing, the North Texas teams are going to do another thing, the upstate New York teams. There is no centralized governing body that talks about game day ops, even something from data organization. So simple as player IDs, game IDs, things that you need to organize the data. That chaos, in my opinion, creates the incredible white space for someone to come solve that. It's not easy to do, and the return isn't nearly as good, but the data becomes incredibly valuable. So you need to take a longer term vision on it. In terms of actually executing the hardware, I doubt outside of the top, call it 100 programs, so talking like the IMG Academies, the De La Salles, like the big powerhouses that put out a lot of prospects, will you ever get chipping in? Now, that being said, similar to the top 60, 70 schools in NCAA, those schools actually produce the most players to go to the NCAA. So similar to college, I think there ends up being a hybrid model where you have 100 schools, the biggest schools wearing the chips, getting the most robust database, and then again you probably deploy some type of computer vision solution to get, call it 80% of that information from the wider swath. And even something like that would be an incredibly revolutionary solution in high school football.
Okay, yeah, awesome. So Mark, have you played football yourself?
I played 4 years of high school football.
Okay, high school football. All right, then I have a blitz question for you at the end of our podcast. So we need to wrap it up soon, but I have a couple blitz ones. So first of all, which is your favorite sport?
To watch as a consumer, football, by far. Diehard Miami Dolphins fan. I grew up in Syracuse, so also love Syracuse football. And to play personally, I'm a big golfer. I play once a week. Yeah. Well, you can't play as many contact sports when you're into your mid-30s.
Not that old, I mean. Yeah. So, all right, who's your favorite player then in any sports, like maybe person?
Across any sport, my favorite athlete.
Yeah, just favorite at.
Well, so it's interesting. So my wife is Canadian, so I've been watching a lot of hockey recently. So I have a lot of admiration for someone like Connor McDavid, who's truly one of the greatest players in the league at this point, and just learning to watch the game and appreciating his skill is absolutely fascinating. So I'd say right now he's probably the person that I think is just the best at what they do by far. So he's probably my favorite player.
Really, I mean, for the first time, I have a person who has the same player. The favorite player is me.
Really? So, no way.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I've been playing ice hockey as a kid myself, so I'm following the NHL, and McDavid is just something on the other side of the
Yeah, it's incredible. Like I say, I probably don't watch hockey at the same level as someone who does as you play, but if I can recognize even in my own basic understanding just how incredible this person stands out and truly what they're doing, they must be very, very, very good.
All right, then favorite sport, we got you. Favorite player is McDavid. Then favorite part of your work, what you do?
That's another good question. You got a lot of good questions here. Look, I think with anything, and the reason I moved to startups is this idea of innovating into white space. So taking an idea off paper, having that vision and that drive to go create it, and then looking back in 12 months and actually standing at the finish line and seeing a new product come to market or a new business be built, and actually just that feeling of success and that 0 to 1 moment is what I live for, right? That's what gets you out of bed every day, and that's just so fun.
The powerful goal probably, right? And having something like purpose driven, being purpose driven.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And look, if you don't do it, no one else is, right? That doesn't exist, right? That business stops. Like it's so I just love that challenge. Like you said, that purpose driven. That is truly incredibly motivating on a daily basis.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's really interesting. Like doing something that no one did before, and basically creating something. And yeah, like even telling me that it sounds so interesting.
Right, and all the pieces to it. So, yeah, we have to bring a product to market, right? That's one piece. But okay, we need sales collateral. We have to go pitch it. We need legal MSAs. We need a financial pricing model. Like everything that goes into just building a new business, it's a lot of work, but it pays off when you get it there, and it's so incredibly satisfying. When you can look back and say, "Yeah, I made this," right?
Yeah, from like you said, from 0 to 1. By the way, have you read the book by Peter Thiel, I guess, the investor of Facebook?
I did. I really appreciate that book.
Yeah,
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 Peter's a unique guy.
yeah. All right, so then we all know right now your favorite part, but what is the worst part of your job?
I think the worst part of the job is when you have to make hard business decisions that impact people. At the end of the day, sometimes it sucks. You can be friends with people, you can have great relationships, but ultimately the business needs to make decisions in its best interest, and that's always the hardest piece. Because I genuinely believe most people work hard, most people want to be there. But as we had some changes we had to make when we were shifting our prior media organization, just to be nimble enough and cut our burn down enough to have a chance to succeed on the other end with product, and that's really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. We all in like business. It's all about people, right? And sometimes it's just hard. I agree. And okay, let's say last thing about the Blitz. I want to ask you, what advice would you give to young entrepreneurs who are entering the sport tech space?
Yeah, I think that's another good question. For me, the one thing I've found, and I think this is good advice for folks out there, is really taking a customer centric focus to what the products you're designing. I think a lot of companies come in and they fail because they say, we have this great technology, say in soccer, and oh yeah, they'll just take it in the NFL. But they don't truly understand their customers. They don't truly understand their problems. They don't truly understand what they're trying to execute. And if you don't really have that intimate knowledge, it becomes very hard to create something that's meaningful and have them truly feel like you're designing a solution with them in mind. So I would say for young entrepreneurs, finding ways to understand and work more closely and get true insights. So whether that's interning for a team for 2 years and then going to build your product, or joining different types of groups and just understanding the sport at a different amateur level. I think that's so incredibly valuable. I think there's a million people who are great at designing products, can build and engineer, but truly understanding the market and truly understanding who your consumers are is a key differentiator.
100% agree, Mark. Recently, I've been listening to some of the sport tech investors. I couldn't remember the name, but he was saying the exact same thing. You couldn't fool the market. You need to create something valuable that people are ready to pay for. You couldn't, create a multi-million-dollar startup out of nothing.
Yeah, that's
You couldn't fool the market. Agree. All right. Yeah, Mark. So what do you want to add as your last thoughts maybe to our listeners and where they could follow you?
Yeah, I think look, like I hope it's entertaining. I hope folks are gonna look out for the 33rd team and hopefully start following along what we're doing. We still have a media side of the business, so I'd encourage folks to go listen to our podcasts. NFL Spotlight, our Gridiron Insights is a new one that's gonna come out. Check the mic and continue to visit the site. We're gonna be putting out collateral and marketing materials around our products. So if you're interested in the data side, you want to learn more about what we're doing, head there. Ideally, in a year or two, we'll begin continuing to hire. So if there's any aspiring strategists, data scientists, we'll also be looking to start to build our team out.
All right. Yeah, guys, let's follow 33rd team. Let's follow their success. Mark, let me wish you and all of your team, huge success in what we've just discussed about it. And pretty sure everyone listening will be looking for your company and hoping to see your logo on NFL website soon.
Well, awesome, sir. I appreciate that. Best of luck in continuing your podcast, and thank you again for having me on.
Thank you.